everybody together, the three chambers. It's kind of like the strongest geometrical strength in the world is from the triangle. So, bringing the business partnership together, bringing the Hunter County Chamber together, and Middlesex uh, Regional Chamber of Commerce together is really you guys have really come together as a force to try to help business and the communities, and we can't thank you enough for everything that you guys have done. So that said, when we started thinking about this program, we were going to start rolling this program out with the three chambers together or individually going into fall, going into 2020. And by talking to the presidents of the three chambers, and Craig and Samantha, we said, man, everybody needs it now. Everybody's trying to figure out what we just have up here said, the world has changed, now what? I don't know what to do going forward. So we said, well, let's put together a condensed course to give people guidance to drive the whole process that we want to move forward with now and see where it goes. And hopefully we'll be able to spin this out to maybe the Small Business Development Center, maybe through Rutgers, maybe through other organizations, because it's a uniquely powerful program that's simple and structured that could apply to everything from an individual startup company to a major Fortune 500 organization. And Sandler did such a fantastic job rolling it out. That's why I'm sticking with it, and I'm excited about running through it. So why are you here? And I guess that's the biggest question that we want to start talking about. And I'm going to have some level of interaction that takes place as we go through this process. So that's what we asked. And I want you to ask that question. What made you attend to this program? And we get one of 5 answers generally, and I'm sure there's a couple others, but most of the businesses that have participated, and we've had probably 30 to 35 that came through the last time we did this, they said, listen, I recognize business is going to be different. And I just don't know what to do, what it's going to look like. Everybody, including me, has said it's not going back to where it was before. And we've seen certain good things that have taken place. We've seen very difficult things that have taken place. But what I can guarantee is nearly every business, not everyone, but nearly every business is going to have some type of structural and strategic change going into 2021 and beyond. Secondly, most of this program was designed, luckily, several years ago for companies that were going through some kind of transition. So if you look at yourself and you look at organizations that you service, sometimes there's a business owner that says, listen, in the next 3 to 5 years, I'm going to be transitioning this program to bring on partners. My organization, I'm going to be bringing on my kids. I'm going to be moving to a different level of where I am to build an organization so I don't have to work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, because I want a business, not just a job I've created for myself. Next time, a lot of folks are looking at, they want to sell the company. What does a sellable company look like, and how do we build value there? Third thing is fourth thing, we've seen companies where they've plateaued and they say, okay, I'm stuck now. Where do I go from here? Okay, what does it look like? Because I've been bouncing around up and down with my organization for a lot of years. And as soon as I get running, I get going up the hill, I get to the top of the hill and I say, okay, what's next? And it's because I didn't have the backfill and the organizational structure to do what I needed to do. The last one, and here's the one we see so often, and I'll refer to the attorney, the law firms, accounting firms, architectural firms, where you have 1 or 2 people who are driving all the revenue in the company and saying, and God forbid something happens there, company's got no income, right? There is no backfill, no support. Somebody, God forbid, gets sick, gets hurt, has to be out of commission for a little while. Company collapses, and that is a high-risk situation. So what we want to really talk about is, what do we need to do to move forward and look ahead in this overall process? So I want to lay out some facts, some situations that I want people to consider. And then right around in about 10 minutes, we'll start talking about what do we need to do to start putting the pieces together of an organization. So here's what we know. Next year, right, everybody's talking about the PPP program, the CARES program. The government and the nonprofits have done a phenomenal job sustaining this economy so there's not a complete collapse. But at some point, probably after November, where's the money going to come from? Right? It's an election year. There's a lot of people who are saying, oh, listen, we want to make sure the economy stays strong. We want to make sure people are taken care of. And that's all great stuff. But at some point, the economy's got to step back and take a look at, where are we? How do we continue to pay? Now it's time for companies to stand on their own. In 2021, with all the leaders I talked to, is the real concern. What happens in 2021 and how are we going to continue to grow and develop our business? So that's going to set the pace for the next 3 to 5 years. That's what we need to start thinking about. Next, here's another thing. If you are going to be in business for the next 10 years, whether you're leading a company or you're growing within an organization, here's some of the generational things that are taking place. In the next 10 years, 63% of existing executives will retire. There's going to have a whole new wave of leadership coming in to organizations. A whole new generation is infiltrating the management ranks. And we also know that 83% of management positions are going to be taken over by the millennial generation. So are they prepared to drive the economy, to drive where business needs to go? When you step back and take a look at it, what preparation are we doing now? So the bottom line is there a contingency plan for each employee within an organization? Is there a contingency plan for you? And what is the cost of not having that? What is the risk associated with not having it? So these are statistics that really help us drive this organization to where we want to go. So what I want you to think about is really, like, change is going to be taking place. A lot of change. And if we started to brainstorm, and I'm going to give you a chance to interact and kind of share some of where you rank, because hopefully everybody got the survey we sent out. Don't worry if you haven't done it. We're going to go through a shortened version here during this program in about 3 or 4 minutes. So the question is, what kind of changes can we anticipate? Because change throws us off our game, right? So, but again, there is no growth without change. You know, one of the things we say in our sales training program, there's no growth without discomfort. So if you're uncomfortable or you're completely comfortable with where you are and what you're doing, you're probably not growing. You're probably flatlining, and that's never a good thing for anybody. But let's take a look at some of the things that are going to take place over the next couple of years, and we've already seen them happen now. Number one, think about all the new industries and new products that have come on board. I see Bob of ServPro. Think about Bob and how his business has changed. Bob, your business over the last 3 months. Think about how that's changed with the COVID situation, all the cleaning services that you're doing, right? Think about some of the other industries that have come up. Zoom, a lot of people didn't even hear of Zoom. Now everybody knows what Zoom is. I never heard of Microsoft Teams. I know, I'm a dinosaur. Until about 3 months ago. I heard, like, somebody said, listen, I'm going to Slack somebody. I said, what is Slack? Okay, I know now, right? Matter of fact, I see it on the stock reports today. Okay, but all this learning has taken place in the past 3 months. That new industries are popping up every single day now, and they're going to take advantage of the changes that have taken place. There's going to be major customer consolidation. With new generations transitioning, loyalties are going to change. Just because you have loyal customers now doesn't mean they're going to be loyal down the road, particularly if you're not keeping up with technology. And here's the biggest thing. There are going to be different buying trends. That's right. If you told me 2 years ago that I would be selling to major organizations across the globe and never meet them hand to hand and shake their hand and win deals, I'd say you're out of your mind. I'm doing that every day today with individuals, with organizations. I just brought a new organization in Connecticut. Never met them before. They just put 2 people in, and we're going to be expanding that beyond, right? So a lot of different ways people buy. If we're not keeping up with how to sell, John and I had that conversation. How do you start selling when you're not shaking hands? That's an idea that we never even thought about 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, or 6 months ago. Happening every day now, and if you're not able to do that, you're going to be losing a lot of business, and this is not going to go away in the future. It's just going to increase. So as you start thinking about different competitors that are coming on board, there's going to be bankruptcies, there's going to be mergers and acquisitions. You're going to see supply chains, regulation is going to change significantly. And here's the one, labor shifts, which we've already been talking about for the past couple years, major labor shifts. And also, here's what's coming. There is going to be a major shift in supply chain. We know that, okay? With all the things that are going on globally after the corona, we saw how at risk we are with supply chain management. This is going to change. So we've got significant changes that are going to take place. And if we're not looking at the future, we're really going to struggle. So here's what I want you to start thinking about as we go into this. We don't know. Right now, we are in crisis mode, but we don't know what it's going to look like coming out of this, but we're out of it. But here's what we do know. Every single crisis is temporary. It's been that throughout history, from the Great Depression to the Great Recession, right, to COVID. We are now right around here, and this is 2001, September 11th. This was what was taking place in about 2008, 2009. We're coming out of it here. But here's the thing. Are we going to be going back into it? I don't know. Are we going to be coming down, up, then plateau, down, up? I don't know. I don't know what the shape is. You don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows, because we can't predict the future. But here's what we need to do. We need to be prepared for every scenario. And that's why we're running this program, to try to help you start thinking about what it is that you need to do. So here's the most important chart. If anybody wants to see this chart, oh, by the way, hopefully you are on speaker view. I forgot to mention that. If you're on gallery view, you're not going to see the board. Make sure you are on speaker view. All right? If you're on, because then you won't be able to see the board and some of the things I'm writing. So look in your upper right-hand corner, and you'll see either gallery view or speaker view. Make sure you're on speaker view. So here's the most important chart that I've been sharing with people since the beginning, 3 months ago, since this came in. Number one, when you start looking at your organization, have your vision and values changed? Has your vision of your organization changed? Have the values of your organization changed? Probably not. They're still consistent. Even though there's a major disruption, nothing's changed in that role. Number two, your goals. And goals drive everything. Okay? Are your long-term goals consistent today with what they were 6 months ago? I'm hoping, yeah. Okay? Your goals haven't changed. Maybe you raised them, but certainly don't drop them, because this is a temporary scenario, right? All crises are temporary. Always keep that in mind. Third, and here's the biggest challenge I have, that we have to say, what facts do I have? Too often, we get stuck in the idea of feelings and beliefs. Your feelings and beliefs are not facts. I know you hold on to them like Linus's blanket. Don't want to let go. Regardless of information, we want to make sure we hold on to what we want to believe, because we don't want to be wrong, right? Some people would rather be right than successful. But feelings and beliefs are not facts. So all you can ask yourself is, what do I control and what don't I control? And I would urge you regularly, particularly when you're feeling pressure, when you're feeling stress, when you're feeling anxiety, write down those two columns and say, A, what am I in control of? B, what am I not in control of? Based on what you find from these two scenarios, You have to make, what decisions can I take now? That's where it all comes together. Those decisions are going to drive you. Now, are those decisions consistent with getting you to where you want to be from a goal-setting standpoint, achieving your long-term goals? So whenever you're starting to do something, make some decisions, change to say, is this, and you could write this down, is this decision or change in action consistent with driving me towards my long-term goals? Don't worry about the short term. You're going to have ups and downs. If you worry about the short term, you're going to struggle constantly. You're going to live in panic. It shuts you down. But are these decisions consistent with my long-term goals? Always ask those questions. So here's what we want to find out. And this is where you guys have to do a little bit of work. Hopefully you got or had a chance at least to look at the 14-question survey that we wrote. Now I want you to start grading your business or your organization, okay? So you'll need a pen and need a piece of paper, pencil and paper, and I'm going to ask you to do a ranking, A, and B, I'm going to ask you to add it up. So we brought it down to 10, so it should be easy math. So here's what I want to ask you. Listen, Sandler, as an organization, we're the largest sales management training organization on the planet. Every year we train over 31,000 people, not me personally. I'm part of a network of training professionals, sellers who run their own business, but we talk constantly and we share ideas. We've got a Sandler Research Center, but we gather a lot of information, and by dealing with 31,000 individuals a year over the past 45 to 50 years, we learn a lot of stuff. And we look for a lot of trends. So what we've been able to find out is, what are the top 10 things that exist that are blind spots to management? And here's what I mean by blind spots. Blind spots are, you ever play the game Whack-A-Mole? Right? Shake your head. Right? Whack-A-Mole, you go to the amusement park and you get the little bat and one problem pops up, you hit it down. Another problem pops up, you hit it down. Another one pops, and you hit it down again. But these are things where you've solved the problem, then you take your eye off, and then boom, the problem comes up again. So what we found out is these 10 things really drive that frustrating thing, which we say is the up and down behavior that inhibits growth of organizations. So what we want to do is I want to get a feel for where your organization is, and that 14-question survey will help you that. So let's go through these real quick, and then I'll get you, how do we fix some of these things? How do we sustain and set up an organization of excellence to get the growth we're looking for? So when you look at the top 10, the very first thing I want you to start thinking about is, does your organization, or if you run a company, do you have a hiring process? And I don't mean, yeah, we hire people and we interview them. I mean, consistently looking for new and better people to enter your organization. Consistently have models where you could say yes or no. It's not a subjective, I like this person, we ought to find a spot for them. Consistent with having criteria to say this person does not fit. We have 5 or 6 non-negotiable, they don't fit the model of the person we're looking for to fill this position. Consistent with, we're continuously upgrading and looking for people to grow and develop within our organization. So it's a lot more in depth than, oh yeah, we know how to hire people. I love people. I could read them like a book. That's not a hiring process. That's a how do I feel today process. Because if you don't have that, what's happening is, more often than not, your top performer decides they're going to start their own business, they're going to leave, go to the competition, or something happens where they're no longer part of it. It's never your mediocre or low performer. It's always your top performer, right? Give your Scalefuss ranking on a scale of 1 to 10 on where you or your organizational fits as far as identifying and hiring continuously better people in your organization. So write something down there. I'm going to ask you, everybody, to give me a score. Scale of 1 to 10. 1 means we got nothing. 10 means we're killing it. We've got a phenomenal process. 2, not tying personal goals to business goals, all right? Do your corporate goals that the company has, is that tied to each individual's personal goals and the owner's personal goals? Do they have goals? Do they know how to set goals? If you went to each individual within your organization and said, what are the corporate goals that we have? If they can't list it, they say, well, how does that impact you? And how does that get you what your personal goals are? If they can't answer that question, either of them, you're in that 1, 2, or 3 ranking. If each individual can give you an exact answer right off the top of their head, boom, you get yourself a 10. Give yourself a rank in there somewhere. Personal goals versus corporate goals. 3, this is an interesting one. You know, it's funny. Not creating a culture of accountability. I'm going to date myself. I am reading a book by a man named Peter Lynch. And Peter Lynch, if you go back to the late 80s, early 90s, ran what was an iconic mutual fund called the Magellan Fund for Fidelity Investment Brokerage firm. And he changed, right? He was one who changed in, you know, with Magellan Fund. That was the biggest fund, eventually became the biggest, most successful fund in history, stock fund in history. And he really changed that business. And it was interesting, and I'm reading the book, it's called Beat the Street. It's really a cool book to watch, and it's funny how 30 years ago, some of the same things that are happening today were happening 30 years ago. And he says, you know, when you give people full responsibility to do their job, it's amazing how well they do and how accountable they are. Too often, we get in the way. We don't help them tie their corporate and business goals, but we get in the way and don't have a business of develop a culture of accountability. Either I'm doing it for you or I'm holding you accountable for it. So do the people within your organization and you maintain full responsibility once they're given tasks to accomplish what they need to accomplish? The answer is no, nothing, right? We don't get it done. That's a lower score. If we're killing it and everybody knows exactly what they need to do and what benchmarks they need to handle and are responsible for getting there, all right, that's in the 9, 10 range. 4, not having a common organizational language. You know, listen, this presentation is geared a little bit towards sales, but it goes throughout the organization. So business development and sales is what we do. So you're going to find a lot of references to that world because that's my world. But think about it. In most organizations, the accounting department knows exactly what a balance sheet, what an income statement is, cash flow is. In most organizations, operations knows production, right, requirements, and they could checklist where they are in production. But you get into sales and you say, well, what's your forecast? I don't know. We're doing good. What's the status of that opportunity? You know, we had a good meeting, but there's no clear language that defines where we are, what we need to do to move the sales process forward. There's no clarity. So if you have a common language you know, I've even gone to organizations where they use so many acronyms, different people in the organization don't even know what the acronym stands for. So it gets confusing. That language barrier within an organization is really confusing. So do you have common organizational languages and approaches to getting certain things done? The models, if you will. If you don't, give yourself a low score on 4. If you do, give yourself a high score. Next, not capturing best practices. How often does your team get together and brainstorm who's performing well and why? Now, here's the funny part is, if you don't have the top 4, it is impossible to be successful with 5. Because best practices don't work unless you have a common methodology and common systems. How could you say, again, in the sales world, yes, that deal is 90% clear of closing and here's my best practice for getting there. When other people are using a completely different system, it doesn't relate. Okay, there's a complete disconnect. So does your organization get together regularly and discuss best practices in alignment with your common organizational structure and approach. Okay, we're halfway through. How are you doing so far? Couple more, all right? Creating a good onboarding plan. See, I've seen companies kill it here and hire phenomenal people. And then they get them in and they have the system where they say, they're experienced. Maybe we'll learn something from them. Let's see what they do for the next 6 months, what we could pick up. You've destroyed a top performer because they don't know what to do. They know how to do it their old world, but their old world isn't your world. There's different processes, different systems, different customers, different strategies, different approaches. And we expect them to perform as a superstar in our company when they don't even know what our company represents. The different goals, the mission, the values, the behaviors, the beliefs. And we wonder why they fail and turn over every 18 months. If you've got a very clear 2-year strategy, which benchmarks, which support system with training and development, which tells people where they need to go within an organization, give yourself a 10. I've got a client, I thought he was going to be here today. Whenever a new person comes into the organization, particularly in the world of sales, his very first thing is first day 101. Here's what he says. He puts up this number, 24. They say, what is that? Right? He says, that's the number of months it's going to take you, the amount of time it's going to take you before you are fully independent within this job. Use all your resources. We have laid out the onboarding plan for you, but if you think you're going to get there in less than 24 months, you are taking shortcuts. Do what we teach you to do. We've been doing this for a long time. We are ridiculously successful. Don't think you're smarter than our system. Follow the process, you know? And the ones who follow it, knock it out of the park. The ones who don't, they're out of the company. Okay? What is your onboarding process and are you getting it there? Give yourself a score on onboarding. Next, the last 4. Not training the management team. Here's what we know. The average person becomes a manager within their career at the age of 32. The average manager receives their first training course at the age of 41. Fascinating statistics, right? So basically, we're throwing people into the management ranks for 9 years before we even tell them what they're supposed to be doing. Most of the time, it's just keep doing what I did and make everybody do what I did, and they fall apart. Next, if you don't have 7, it is impossible to have 8. How do you coach? Listen, I got a coach. I've had coaches since I was in grade school, for crying out loud. They teach me what my strengths and weaknesses are, where I need to go. As a manager, are you coaching your team? And coaching is not using a beating stick to tell them what they're supposed to do. It is really uncovering what their strengths and weaknesses are and getting the most out of that person based on what their needs are, not what your needs are. Okay? Give yourself a score on coaching. Are you receiving it? Are you not receiving it? Are you giving it? Are you not receiving it? Next, not effectively planning for organizational change. As we went in this, who had their checklist? I said, okay, boom, crisis mode. Let's go to the videotape. Check A, B, C, top 10 things we need to do, right? Pull our line of credit. Set up a structure for what people need to do to work out of their homes. Put together an organization for a communication process. Update people on a daily, weekly basis on what they need to do. Lay out what the expectations are on a day-to-day basis, right? Did you have that, or were you scrambling to try to figure out, how do we get people linked up to communicate at home with, what do we do here? See, this is going to come again. You know, there's a, Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan said it best. He said, in the 2009 crisis, financial crisis, she said, Daddy, what's a financial crisis? Jamie said, something that happens every 7 to 10 years, sweetheart. And he's right. It's coming back. Something is coming back. Every 7 to 10 years, you're going to have a crisis. Okay? Why are we not prepared with the checklist of what we need to do when we're in crisis mode, while we're in crisis mode, and make updates after we're in crisis mode? If you need a chart along those lines, send me an email. Be happy to send it to you. It's very simple, but we got to have a list. And last, not sharing the vision with those who are tasked with implementing it. Do you have a vision for your company? Do the people you work with know what that vision is? If you say, well, no idea, give yourself a low score. You got a very clear idea, you could state it off the top of your head, and you know how you're connected with it, boom, give yourself a 7, 8, 9, okay? All right, so these are 10 things. Hopefully you rank yourself. So I'll give you a second, add them up. Real quick, I'm gonna give you 15 seconds, add them up, and then I'm gonna let you know tell me where you are from a standpoint of how your company ranks in this overall process. Yeah, make sure you're on a speaker mode. Now, keep in mind, the 14-question questionnaire obviously has different numbers and a different ranking. We've modified that to fit this and this role. So here's my question for you. And what you could do is there's a reaction button and down at the bottom, right? Give me a thumbs up or an applause. If you're companies that are under 50, right? Give me some idea of who's under 50 in this ranking. Okay. Who doesn't want to share in this ranking? I think that's more of it. If you're under 50, these are companies that really have no control of where they are with the organization, right? They're in survival mode. They're just trying to go hand to mouth. They're just trying to get through the day, week, month, hit their cash flow, hit their cash, get in another deal so they can last another 3 months. It's a tough way to live. Now, if you're new, if you're a startup, I get it. It's like that for the first couple of years. If you've been around a while and you're in that under 50 range, you really need to step back and say, okay, listen, we need a plan because we're getting impacted now. And if it weren't for these government and state and small business programs, we probably wouldn't survive. Fair? Secondly, who's in the 50 to 75 range? Anybody want to share there? Anybody got a rank in the 50 to 75? Okay, good. I see a couple of you raising your hands. Okay, yeah. Well, these are average companies. You're doing okay. We got some of the things in place, but these are the companies that are hit mostly by that up and down behavior. We're doing great, we're struggling. We're doing great, we're struggling. It's these up and down behavior which drives you insane and it makes it impossible for you to grow. And that's really these are the companies that really can use a structure and a process to get where they need to be. Third, well-run companies, right? Anybody in the range of the 70 to 90? If you are, you're doing great, okay? Congratulations, I love it. Because these companies generally are, they're managed well, they're respected by the industry, possibly, they're in the top 25%. But listen, there's still some vulnerability there, certain things that could pop up that could get you in trouble. Now, if you get to the excellent range, hands off to you. These are companies that are killing it. People are in place. They are moving forward. They're driving business ahead. These companies are the true professional leaders of an industry, right? And it is a way of their life. Your business probably ranks or will at some point be ranking in the top 5% of organizations within your industry, okay? Because you have all the pieces together and you keep making the modifications to get to a continuously higher and higher level. So hats off to you guys, right? If anybody's there. But we generally see people in this 50 to 9, in that 70 range, right? Often the people who are here don't even come onto these programs. They're too busy just trying to get their next deal. They don't have time to do any planning. So that's not unusual either as we see the process. So what we want to do is I'm going to go through real quick some of the things that we need to talk about to go from wherever you are to where you want to be from the next step of the process. And that's what we're going to spend the next 20 minutes on. Sandler put together this program. Well, let me put it this way. CEO of Sandler, Dave Mattson, went to this program about 8 or 9 years ago. And he's been through it 4 or 5 times. And when he was doing that, he had recently bought the company, right, from his mentor's family, right, David Sandler. It's now Dave Mattson is the CEO now. And he said, I got to take this company from kind of middle performing globally. He says, I want to be the largest organization, global organization for sales management, and leadership training in the planet. And he started making these changes. And people said, what are you doing? You're destroying the whole culture, process, this and that and the other. But what he did is, over the next 5 years, Sandler's become the largest, by double at least, sales and sales management training organization in the planet. Right? We've got over 275 training centers across the globe. I could do business globally, and I do. I got a company where I call my person in China, Shanghai or Singapore, right? I call my people in Europe, whether it's France, whether it's the Netherlands, whether it's Germany. Okay, I call my people in South America, my guy in Mexico, my person in Brazil. I could do business anywhere on the planet, which has really helped us grow and develop where we need to be. Now my personal business here in central New Jersey, how am I growing that? This is where the plan's together. So what they've done is they broke this down, and it was so effective that he bought the program. First time Sandler's ever done that in her 50-year history. And it's really based on these 6 Ps, right? It's the planning, positions, people, processes, performance metrics, and the passion that goes along with it. So I'm going to walk you through some key things here, and some things I'm going to blow through fairly quickly. But this can help you as an individual, and this will also help you from a standpoint as an organization, as a leader in your organization, wherever you want to go. So I want to share these thoughts with you. Let's get to section number 1. Everything starts with the plan. Right? And what's that old saying? You fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? But there's elements of planning that I really want you to be aware of. Number 1, most top leaders have a personal vision of the company and where they want to fit and perform in that company. My question for you is, I'm going to offer this to you. If you would like, and I'll be sending it to everybody who's on our list, I'm going to send you a tool that Sandler provides. It's called Who Am I? And it's a 2-page worksheet. Take some time, invest in it, and write down. It talks about, what are you good at? What are you not good at? How do other people see you? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you see yourself in the next year? It's a phenomenal exercise to go through in planning your career, planning your business. Because here's what we find. Once real leaders, true leaders, understand what their personal vision is, if they tie that to their company vision, it makes a whole big difference in how the company performs. Because have you ever been with an organization where you could see the passion, feel the passion of the leader? That's a company that people want to follow, right? If you're with a company where the leader really just wants to get through the day, who wants to work for that organization? It's hard, because generally, energy is driven by the leader. We're going to talk about the company vision and what we see along those lines and how that fits together. Because if the company doesn't have a clear vision of where it needs to be, how can people get there? So here's what I'd like you to do. Just take a second. If you could write 1 or 2 lines, and I'll give you 15 seconds to do this because this is so critical. Where do you see, even if you're not the owner of the company, where do you see the company in the next 5 years? Write me a vision of what you see the company, how you see the company in the next 5 years. I'm very clear. By 2025, I am right now a 2.5 person operation. I will be a 6 person operation in the next 5 years, dominating the sales training market in Central New Jersey. And there's a lot of other details with revenue and everything else associated with that. But I know exactly what it's going to be, and I know exactly what I'm going to be doing. Because if you can't see it, you can't do it. Write down, and this has got to be the vision you have posted in front of you every single day. Because if you don't know where you're going, you might not get there, to quote Yogi Berra, if many of you know who he is. Next, and here's what is always interesting. Most people, and I have to admit, full disclosure, most companies get confused and they misinterpret and misunderstand the difference between a vision and what the mission is. And then they misinterpret what we define as the company culture, which is beliefs, values, and behaviors. And I'm going to share with you what that looks like and what that means, because it's a critical part of this overall planning process, because without it, it's impossible for you to drive forward. So write down these 3 words, and I'll be happy to send this information to you if you want afterwards if you don't get it down. But I want you to write down 3 lines. We provide, okay? 2, and then at the bottom, so they. It's a fascinating exercise, and you're not going to get it done in 15 seconds. Here's our mission. My Jim Barnoski Sandler mission. We provide sales management and leadership training. 2, individuals and organizations who are committed to personal and professional growth. If that is lacking, we're not working together. Okay? So they can develop the skills, strategies, and mindset. And here's what turns me on. Here's how I get excited. To exceed. The word exceed is what is the spark that gets me out of bed in the morning. Individual and company goals and dreams. When somebody says, I want to get here, and through our training and our coaching and our help, I can get them here, how cool is that? There's no better feeling in the planet to know you've changed somebody's life along those lines. But the word is exceed, not meet. Right? Because most people are so much better. Most organizations are so much better than they allow themselves to believe. See, that's the mission. The mission, and you've heard this before, is your why you do what you do. The vision is what you see it as. Most people get that confused and don't have that clarity. And these 3 little lines, those 5 little words will get you there. Here's the next piece, and this is critically important. What is the culture of your company? If you go and ask, what is the culture of our organization? Okay? People will give you all different answers, but really what the culture is defined by is 3 fundamental things. What are the values? What values does your group, your department, your organization represent? What are the values? What's important to you? We do an interesting exercise on values for personal values. And most people don't know what their core values are. But it is what is most important to you within an organization. Those values have to tie to your beliefs. One of our values is that it's family first. Okay? So if the people I work with and if they have some personal issues at home, that is primary number. Yeah, we still got to run the company, but we got to take care of our family. So there's always time to take care of your family first. My belief is if you take care of those personal family issues first, that people will be more committed long-term for growth. My system has been working with me for 15 years, okay? And there's no end in sight. And that's highly unusual in this role. And then what behaviors do you do to support that? Too many people, too many organizations, they say, here's our values, and their behaviors are completely inconsistent with what they say, the words that come out of their mouth. Having that conversation within your organization is absolutely critical, and that is what defines your company culture. See, here we got 15 minutes left, and we're still on the planning, because if you don't have this piece together, nothing else will come together, because the whole process is really based on the concept of, are these three things in alignment? How often do you have a vision in company that doesn't agree with the mission that is on the wall that nobody ever sees, which is not in alignment with the values or the actual behaviors that you guys do? See, this is how you start building an organization. It really starts at the top, and that's what true leaders have to be stepping back to say, listen, this is going to be a long, rocky road going down from this point forward. So that's what we want to really take a look at. So once we have this, that's all phase one. And it gets into a lot of other details, but that is phase one. And it comes down to these three pieces, which takes a lot longer than you recognize. So let's go to phase two. Okay. Now, phase two is not hard, but it really takes it's an out-of-body experience, if you will. And here's what I mean by that. Too many organizations say, all right, who are the people that I have, and where do they fit to get us where I need to go? Once you have the vision in alignment with where you are, you define what are the positions within this company. So what I want you to do after this, because we might not have time to do it here, put together an organizational chart of your company 3 years from today and 5 years from today. What does that organizational chart look like? Because if you have that vision of where it is, you go backwards and you say, okay, in 3 years, what does that org chart look like to get us there? 5 years, we're there. What does that org chart look like? You might have different divisions. You might have different people. You might have different functions. Now, here's the thing. Here's the key. You are not allowed to include or consider the existing people in your organization. I'll repeat that. You are not allowed to consider the current people in your department or your organization. It has to be blind of the current talent you have. You put them in later. We'll find a place for them. But it has to be free of those boundaries. Otherwise, it won't work. But ideally, what is the organization that exists down there? So, number one, the planning needs to be complete before you can do this. Number two, it's 3 to 5 year vision. 3, you cannot consider current personnel, because many of those people won't be there anyway. And 4, and here's another interesting thing, based on where we're going, how many of these functions are going to be performed outside of the company? It's growing. There's more and more outsourcing that is taking place. Watch what happens next year, because companies have recognized that some of these functions can be outsourced. You're going to have a lot of new people starting their business. It's fantastic, okay? You're going to have a lot of companies that are growing more lean. You're going to have a lot of companies that are building and hiring because they have a whole new product line or structure that they need to get to. So, listen, it's changed. It's hard. But if you're ready for it, all the pieces will come together. And that's what's really cool. Now, here's the other piece of this, and I'll share what this is. For each position you have on that chart, we use a thing called the search model. I want you to build a model, and we do a lot of this in our management training. Build a model of what are the requirements for that job. Now, this is where people fall apart. It's not gut feel. It is non-negotiable objective structure that needs to take place. And we break that down to what we call a search, which stands for what are the skills necessary to perform that job? What is the background and experience required to perform that job? What are the attitudes required to perform that job? Somebody who is in manufacturing, who is running that job, is probably not going to be a good fit for somebody who's in customer service who is trying to guide customers and have the patience, unbelievable patience to get them word and knows how to, right, to be able to work with people very nurturingly to get them where you need to go. What are past results that we expect and that they've proven they could achieve? Cognitive skills and habits. So once you break down the non-negotiable search structure, now you could start building the models of the people who would fit into that organization. See, it's easy if you lay the blueprint. Once you have the blueprint for a structure, then the pieces start coming together. Okay. Now that we have the positions in place, everything else, now we can start taking a look at who are the people that we have who fit those layers. See, I don't know where people are going to be right here, but as I go through this process and I know how these pieces start coming together, I could take different individuals and make sure they fit where they need to be. Now, listen, they might need to be trained, right? They might need to be moved. They might need to, and these might change a little bit. But it's interesting, I was listening to the business news today, and there's an individual who was interviewing, and he said something I thought was really impactful. He said, we need to start hiring for competency, not necessarily education. And I thought that was kind of an interesting statement, but after I stepped back and looked at it, and what he meant is, I think he meant is, listen, just because somebody has a certain education doesn't mean they have the competency to do a job. So just because somebody doesn't have that education doesn't mean they can't learn it, because they have the natural skills to fulfill that competency. And it's just something to step back and start thinking about, is really taking a look at your team and your people to figure out who fits where in an objective manner to grow your company. You might need to invest a lot in your budget or in your training program. Do they have the ability to perform the job? They just need the skills. That's the easy part. Don't presume they have the ability to perform just because they have the education or the background in it. And we really need to take a look at that, and that's a powerful piece of the puzzle, okay? So we're halfway through. And again, as you go forward in this, it gets easier. So we do a lot, and I urge you to really step back and objectively assess your team. What is their belief systems to get them where they need to go? How do they learn? Do you even know how you learn? Okay, most people don't, right? Really step back and say, how do I absorb information and retain information? What are my personality and styles that I need to utilize my strengths to perform in a certain manner? What are my weaknesses that I need to fix or get support from? And next, what is some of the scripting that I have that might inhibit my ability to achieve certain levels and grow from there? So again, these are just a quick snapshot of really how we objectively look at people's capabilities to get them where they need to go. And it's a powerful piece. So once you have those, think about it. You got the vision, mission, culture. You have established what the structure looks like. Now you have the right people in the right job when you've outsourced it. Now it really almost gets administrative. Now we start getting down to the numbers. And I want everybody to step back and look at every system in your organization. What's working, what's not working, what are the bottlenecks that start taking place? All systems must be clear, well documented, repeatable, and as simple as possible. I have no idea why people like to make things complex. It's simple, okay? If we were live and I could play a videotape, there is a great video clip on YouTube. And if you type in, there's a video clip, Bleed for This, okay? And if anybody wants to see it, I'll send it to you. And it's about a boxer who went through some terrible injuries and personal stuff, and he ended up winning. It's a true story. The I think welterweight championship of the world, goes back 30 years. And they said, well, what did you have to overcome? He said, listen, if you just do what they tell you to do, it's done. But everybody tells you it's hard. It's not that hard. Just do the thing and it's done. And I get goosebumps when I think about it, but I'll send you the clip if you want to see it. But it's a very powerful clip at the end of this movie that really says, if you have the structure and you just do the thing, everything takes care of itself. So, but you want to make it simple from a standpoint of the processes that need to take place. We've got processes in business development for 10 things. Let's say, listen, there's a lot of stuff here. Do you have a process for lead generation? If not, stick with it. That's where it all starts. Do you have a process for developing relationships and growing your business? Do you have a process for qualifying, making presentations, serving your customers? There's a lot of checklists. There's a great book called The Checklist Manifesto. And I can't remember the name, or I can't pronounce the name of the guy who wrote it, but it's a fantastic book, The Checklist Manifesto. And it really talks about the process of making checklists, and it has actually changed the medical community. It's used every day in the airline community by having simple, easy to read checklists in your process. Changes the world. But yet, we want to wing it as opposed to follow the process. And if the process doesn't work, you change the process. See, why are we making it so hard? I guess it's part of our nature. Mm-hmm. And then the key measurements that we got to talk about and really go down. What are the dashboards? Listen, this is simple. I told you, this is a sales-driven business. But when we start talking about this, you don't have to have all these. You should. But the bottom line is, what is your dashboard? The dashboard will tell you what you need to know. What are the top 2 or 3 things you need to be looking at every single day? Think about your car. Do I have gas? Don't I have gas? Is the oil light on? Is the light not on? Is the door open? Is the door not open? You don't need a lot of stuff. But you do need some stuff to tell you, are you on track? So if we can narrow these down to say, what non-negotiable incremental things do I need to check every day to make sure I'm in alignment, so I don't have to worry about 8,000 things, what 1 or 2 or 3 things do I need to accomplish every day to get me where I need to go? It changes everything. So these are the kind of things, you know, it didn't take me long to go through the last 3, because once you have the first 2, everything gets easy. And at the end of the road, here's where passion comes in. You start talking about, what is my life roadmap? Do I have vision boards? Do I have my bucket list? Okay. And this will all tie into where we started, which was, what is your personal vision of your organization? So it comes full circle as you go through this process. But listen, it's continuous, right? It's incremental. It's continuous, and it's in a circle for a reason. Because as soon as you start, you complete the cycle, you go again. And that's how people are going to achieve long-term incremental growth. And that's what we work on. So this is the process that we were talking about. So listen, so 2 quotes as we start to wrap up the whole program. And these 2 people are, one is a dear friend of mine that recently passed. He's a Sandler trainer. And his name was Gary Harvey out of Colorado. You probably see him on YouTube. And Gary O said one thing that always stuck with me. He said, you know, if you're unwilling to take action to fix a problem, you have lost the right to complain. There's something about that that just sticks with me. We all want to complain about something, but what are you doing to fix it? And if you're unwilling to take action to fix it, stop complaining. Right? You are part of the problem. Secondly, think different. We are entering a new world. No question about it. I need you to think different. Works for Apple, okay? Different is what's going to get us from where we are to where we want to be driving forward in this process. So where do we go from here? So what I want you to think about is, number one, this is a program that's going to lead into a very tight, this used to be a one-year program, but it's a tightened 8-week executive leadership program. Going to be about 2.5 hours, mornings, over a course of 8 weeks. We might do it every other week, depending on who's involved. It also involves a lot of online reinforcement sessions. Part of this 8 week, you're going to have 2 executive coaching sessions with me to make sure all the pieces start coming together. You're going to have peer interaction, right? Support group to get you where you need to go. And it really follows a book that we have, which you could always get on our website, which is, right, The Road to Excellence. So this is the program that we're driving forward. I'd love to see, if you want to know more about it, email me, chat me. So what my question is, as we wrap up here, and I'll turn it back over to whoever's on, Chris, Samantha. Well, we'll wrap it up from here. But listen, chat me. Give me some feedback in this overall process. If you want to sit down and just have questions on the program, right? Just chat me and say, yes, let's connect, let's call. If you don't want me to ever bother you again, you could always put no, right, in your chat. And I'm good with that too. But what will happen if you want to sit down with me, you'll meet with me probably through a video conference, right? We'll talk about your goals of the program. I will also send you an 84-question survey if you're significantly interested in the program, which helps you outline what the details of that program look like and help you really take a look at it of where you need to start tweaking things to get them where they need to be. And last, I'm going to send everybody what I talked about early is this Who Am I worksheet, which I urge you to take a look at. And it really is a fantastic exercise, which I go through once a quarter to say, really, what do I want to do? Where am I going? Am I alignment? Am I doing what drives me? And how am I getting there? But it's a very powerful worksheet. And if you want to talk with me, I'd love to sit down and talk with you about it. So with that said, I want to turn it back. I want to thank you guys for being here. I'm going to turn it back to Chris to just simply wrap it up and send us off and just chat me. And I thank you all for being here. And I got you out within 3 minutes of what I promised.